Okay, Chris, hello.
Hello.
Here we are at the Centre of Army Aviation at Middle Wallop.
And the historic Army aircraft flight.
Indeed, and we're going to fly one of the historic Army aircraft flight helicopters, the Bell 47C.
Correct, yeah. X-ray Tango 131.
Rich Pillans in the left seat.
And Chris Ballard in the right seat.
Okay, I'll go through the checks now then. So the battery is on, and we're going to check the full and free movement of the controls. Start with the pedals. I like to look over my shoulder and see the tail rotor moving as I move those pedals. And then the cyclic, it moves nice and freely, and I can see the rotor head behind me to check that all the movement is correct. Collective up and down, and the throttle rotates freely as well. The fuel cock is on. I'm nice and secure in my seat. You look pretty secure.
I'm secure, yeah.
I'm going to turn the starter on, and I'm checking all the gauges are reading as they should do. Which they are. So next event for me is to make a radio call, and then we'll start the engine.
Okay.
Transmitting.
Foxtrot 766, roger, surface wind 010 degrees, 8 knots, 1 ahead.
Wallop Tower, historic 06, the Sioux helicopter, 2 persons on board, Delta, engine ready start.
Historic 06, Wallop Tower, roger, start approved, surface wind 010 degrees, 8 knots, readability 5.
Start, readability 5 also, historic 06. Temperature outside on a outside air temperature gauge by my feet is about 18 degrees. So I'm going to prime the engine by turning the fuel pump on, checking the fuel light has just gone out, and then rotating the throttle on my collective, and you can see it moving on the right hand side here too. That was 2, 3. That's a total of 5 primes of the throttle. Put it in the detent, take the rotor blades off to the side, turn on the strobe, and indicate that we're ready to go. All clear on the left hand side.
All clear on the right.
Okay. There, I start the engine with the starter motor on the throttle, and then I'm going to turn the magnetos on after that. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, didn't start on the first game. Not uncommon, we'll give it another game. Turn the magnetos off. With 2 more primes. That was the third one for good luck, and we'll try again. We're still clear all around.
Still clear right.
Not sure why it's not starting yet. So let's give it a little second to calm myself down.
Okay.
Let the fuel evaporate, let it sort itself out, we'll go. Okay, go through those checks again. We've got the fuel cock definitely on. We've got the beacon on, we've got the fuel pump on. We're going to prime again in a second. We know we've got fuel pump because we can hear it behind us, so we can see it on the gauge. Okay, see the pressure up. And ready for the next start.
There we go.
And there we go, eh?
Correct, she knows she's on camera, you see, would have gone first time every time, I don't want.
I think you're right. Okay, so the engine has accelerated and the rotor is the short needle here, and that has come up to meet the long needle. And that means the engine and rotor are both synchronized through the clutch. The engine oil pressure has risen up into the green nicely, so I can accelerate the engine on this gauge to show 2300 RPM. Oh, we let the engine warm up slowly at 2300 RPM. And we're going to let it warm up until the engine oil pressure is in the green. Okay, so the engine oil temperature is in the green. And the cylinder head temperature is also in the green. It's got a little way to go. While we're waiting, we'll turn on the generator, the flight instruments, and the transponder. the transponders on, we've got that working, and in altitude mode.
For anybody wondering what Colin was up to there, he was just having a look around the aircraft as it starts, because when there's no pressure on, as the pressure comes up, that's when you're likely to see leaks and fire and etc. So we obviously can't see behind us.
So Colin's happy, that means there are no leaks, and we're good to go flying once we've finished all our checks. So we just did 3 electrical things there. The next 3 things we're going to do are to do with the engine and the other systems of the aircraft. So first I'm going to do is check the magnetos work. While the engine's relatively cool, we just turn off each magneto in turn, and that way we know that they both work. But if they didn't work, it would shut down and it wouldn't break the engine by shock cooling it. That's why we do it nice and early. Next thing we do is check the carb heat is working. I pull this black lever down and I'm watching the 2 needles here. One is the carburetor air and one is the filter air. And I just want to check that they both rise when I've pulled that carb heat down.
And what's the purpose of the carb heat? It's to stop ice forming in the carburetor, isn't it?
That's exactly it, yeah. So when you get to a low power setting, typically in a descent on a cold day, you can have a reduction in air through that carburetor, and that can mean it can accrue or turn into ice crystals, and those ice crystals can start blocking the carburetor and you end up stopping the fuel flow through. So both needles have risen nicely, so I can put the carburetor heat lever back to the top.
Okay.
And know that that system works. The last check I do at this stage is to push the manifold drain pressure, and by pushing it in I've watched the gauge just below it on the needle has risen up to 29.92 inches. What's that, Chris?
Say again?
What's 29.92 inches?
Sea level pressure?
It is in inches of mercury, so it's an old helicopter and it still uses inches of mercury rather than hectopascals or millibars as have been used over the years since. Okay, while we were doing those checks I look down and see that the engine oil temperature and the cylinder head temperature are both in the green, so I can accelerate the engine now, and I'm looking at the RPM gauge to do that. Rotating the throttle on the collective, you can hear the engine accelerate.
Yeah.
And I set the engine up to 3200 RPM, that's a good flying speed. And with it working at full flying speed, we now want to check that the magnetos are really working well. Not just that they're working, but that they're working well. So it's just above 3200, and I turn off one magneto at a time, and I watch the needle drop. Not too much, but it does drop, and that's a good thing. And I can hear the engine is not rough running.
It's only running on one set of plugs, right?
That's exactly it. Magnetos, spark plugs. I turn that one back on, and the engine accelerates again.
Okay.
I'll turn off the second magneto, and the same happens. So both magnetos are working on the engine. All those spark plugs are in good order. Next thing I'm going to check is the hydraulic system. I've got a switch down here.
Okay.
I've put that to the off position, and I'm going to move the controls, and I'm looking at the disc on the horizon. I can see the disc moving, and it feels a bit stiff. Would you like to see how that feels?
Yeah, it's quite funky, isn't it?
Yeah. So without the hydraulic system helping us, it's a bit stiff to fly. I turn the hydraulic system back on, it all feels smooth again. Have a look at that.
Yeah, totally different.
Okay. And the final thing we're going to check is that the clutch works, and that's so that if we had an engine failure in flight, we know that the engine might well slow down, but the rotor speed would be allowed to stay high. And we could talk about auto-rotative force on another day.
Yeah.
So I'm going to slow the engine down to the bottom of the permissible flight band, and then quickly take it back to ground idle, and you saw the needle split. That's the clutch disengaging. And the checks require me to make sure that the needles joined about 2300 RPM, and they did. So all is good.
What's the main rotor RPM?
Main rotor RPM is the inner gauge, and conveniently it's fairly similar to the outside numbers. So we talk about 300 for the rotor RPM, 300 to 320.
So about 300 to 320, yeah, as opposed to the scope being up at about 410, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's all those checks that we need to do prior to flight. The last thing is the pre-takeoff checks, so we'll do those and then make a radio call to go.
Okay.
On my left side I've got the fuel cock, that's on. I come around here, everything looks secure. The rotor brake is in the off position. I've got my strobe on, all the circuit breakers are in that need to be in. I changed the engine oil temperature gauge into a transmission oil temperature gauge by flicking the switch down.
Okay.
It's a common oil system, but there's two sensors, and when flying I want to see the transmission temperature. I checked the T's and P's on all the gauges, and we heard the ATIS I picked up earlier is telling me that the pressure being used at the airfield, the QFE, is 1013. So that is the standard sea level pressure, and so 29.92 is on the altimeter on my aircraft gauge here. Considering all the switches and instruments are in the right places, and I've got 040 degrees on my compass on the left here, and so I'm going to set that on the gyro stabilised compass that's in front of me. I think we're good to go.
Brilliant.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll make a radio call and we'll go. Transmitting. Wallet Tower Historic 06, request air taxi with Romeo for the engine off area.
Taxi engine off area, surface wind 010 degrees, second up.
Taxi Historic 06. Okay, clear on my left hand side, clear on my right. Excellent. In that case, we'll lift into the hover. As I do so, I'm making sure the engine and rotor speed stay within the nice red lines on the gauge. I'll lift into the hover. But I had to adjust the throttle as I climb because there's no governor on this helicopter. And so now I'm in the hover nice and stable. I can check the instruments, the manifold pressure is looking sensible, all the other T's and P's look good, and I've got good control of the aircraft. Tail's clear your side?
Yep, clear.
We turn around, we see the other aircraft on the airfield here at the home of Army Aviation.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the grob tutors for the pilots or student pilots in their initial grading. Used to be chipmunks many years ago, didn't it?
It did, yeah. Oh, right here we've got the Army Flying Museum.
Yeah, there's a strict protocol going past here that one of us has to be on waving duties.
Usually works best if it's you.
Yeah.
Yep. Bit of waving in reply is always nice. Okay, it's all clear on the airfield. And transmitting. Historic 06, request non-standard departure from present position into the engine off circuit.
06, present position, good takeoff, surface wind 010 degrees, 7 up.
Okay, take off present position into the engine off circuit, Historic 06.
Historic 06, just to confirm, remain east of runway 35.
We'll remain east of runway 35, Historic 06. And we'd like to change over to wall of quiet frequency.
Historic 06, we'll continue on the quiet frequency 233.375.
233.375, Historic 06. Full of quiet, Historic 06. For the engine off area.
Flying calls if you wish. Just there's a 172 to the path for runway 35, please to the southwest.
Visual the departing traffic and we'll make blind calls, Historic 06. Okay, these white cones in front of us here are where we're going to operate for the next few minutes.
Okay. Got the birds on the left there.
Roger, see those? And I'm going to do a quick stop just here. So into the 12 o'clock, quick stop. Easing off the throttle as I do so, picking the nose of the helicopter up, and letting the aircraft slow down. We've slowed down pretty quickly and I'm now going to level the attitude and let the helicopter descend into the hover. Good way to slow the aircraft down quickly. Now we don't go that fast in this helicopter, we only go about 70 knots. And so we do slow down really, really quickly when we pick the attitude up. Just like that. That's clear on my side from lookout turn.
Always one of the big attractions at Middlewall. Look at the birds, aren't they? They're everywhere.
Big grass field, eh?
Yeah, lots of food.
And my radio call again. Historic 06. Entering the engine off circuit for a 1,000 foot circuit, auto rotation back to the engine off area. Okay, transitioning. Keep the height down so that we're below the avoid curve at 45 knots. We pick the attitude up so that we use all that power to climb.
Conducting auto rotation, 1,000 feet. Visual with the traffic. Golf Fox Alpha runway 35, clear to take off, surface 3020 degrees. Clear to take off, and I'll be doing Golf Fox Alpha. Surface 3020 degrees, take off.
So as we turn now, we're going to turn onto a downwind heading, continue to climb up to 1,000 feet to auto rotate back towards the engine off area.
Okay.
While we're climbing up, there's a few checks I do. One of those is what we call Hazel checks.
Okay, I'm familiar with those, yeah.
First is H for height, up to 1,000 feet, and we're going to recover on the way down. We're going to make sure we've got the engine re-engaged with that clutch at 300 feet so that we can do a power recovery all the way down, and we'll do a running landing at the bottom to ground level. The area is the white count area we saw a second ago.
Yep.
I'm secure on my side, all the equipment is, if you're secure.
I'm secure, yeah.
We're doing a good lookout turn as we go around now.
Yeah, the Cessna's just gone off on 3-5.
Roger. And just before that alpha lookout turn is E for engines, and the engines and all transmission instruments are looking good as well. Okay, I can see the landing site on my right hand side.
Okay.
So when I do these descents, I'm using the yellow line that's around the front of the aircraft there. And if I'm able to look inside my side of the yellow line and see the landing site, then that means I'm going to be able to make the landing site.
Okay, yeah.
So just as that yellow line gets towards the engine off area, I'm lowering the lever now, and I'm going to wind the throttle down, transmitting. Historic 06, final engine off area. And as you pointed at the gauge here, we can see that the engine needle is split from the rotor needle. So we know that we're in auto rotation, but I've still got good control of the aircraft, left, right there, and left. And we're descending towards the ground. Okay, we're approaching 300 feet, so I said I'd rejoin the needles. Copter, and you heard the engine wind up. As we get towards the ground level, I'm going to start to flare the aircraft. That reduces the rate of descent. And I've got a little bit of
Yeah, you pull up 1019. Sierra 1019.
And now that radio call's finished, I'll carry on talking. We just finish off with a nice running landing so that we can put in our mind what it looks like if we had a real engine failure.
Yeah. There's a fair bit of ground rush at the end there, isn't there? It's surprising.
There is. Yeah, it comes up to meet you pretty quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not an unpleasant experience though in this aircraft, is it? It's not...
It's a really forgiving aircraft. It's a nice stable, that whole descent, I could have let go of the controls and it would have flown itself down.
Please don't.
Probably for the best. Okay, just checking the engine instruments are all in good order, and so lifting into the hover.
Yeah.
the takeoff checks. Again, T's and P's are all looking good, and we have good control of the aircraft. That is clear. Okay, no conflicting aircraft. Transmitting. Historic 06, ready for departure, engine off area, circuit back to the engine off area. Transitioning. And once again we keep the height down until we're at 45 knots, and then level the altitude, and we climb quite nicely at the minimum power speed of 45 knots.
That's what you'd refer to basically as a cycling climb then, yeah?
Yeah, the transition from accelerating in level flight and using the bucket speed, the minimum power speed, as best as possible to get into a cycling climb. So on this one I'm going to go round and fly a full circuit. When I come back in I'm going to be between 60 and 70 knots. I'm going to conduct a torque turn, which is one of our display manoeuvres that we use as part of our flying display as the four-ship historic Army aircraft flight.
Golf Foxtrot Alpha, we've had reports of gliding south. Golf Foxtrot Alpha, and we'll be looking out. But the outbound figure will be remaining with you, if that's okay.
And you can hear the other aircraft on the frequency. So what I'm now thinking about is how I'm positioning to do those torque turns. So I'm running through that set of Hazel checks again. The height will be not below 100 feet. The area once again is the engine off area. Security is all good. Engine instruments are reading sensibly, and the lookout is all clear ahead. Transmitting. Historic 06, final engine off area for 2 times torque turn. Okay, it's still all clear ahead. I've got 150 feet showing on the altimeter. I like the height I'm at. Over 60 knots. So torque turn, go. I slightly reduce the throttle as I pull the nose up. The airspeed reduces. I then increase the throttle without a flying pedal, and that torque reaction makes the aircraft spin round around the rotor head.
So ostensibly it's actually quite low stress on the aircraft and it's not as bad as it or as it
That's correct, yeah.
just as it looks, yeah.
Okay, before we get to those trees, doing another torque turn, speed is good. Torque turn, go. Nose up, reduce the throttle, speed comes down, apply the throttle to create a torque reaction but without countering it with pedal.
And you'd often use that sort of manoeuvre for crop spraying, or if in the military terms you'd want to get around in a hurry and get back on your target.
So let's compare that manoeuvre with doing a 180 degree level turn like this. And so that torque turn didn't use up any lateral space. If we were in a narrow valley, it's much easier to do that torque turn than it is to use the lateral space we just used. It can be quicker, and so if the enemy are ahead of you and you want to turn around really quickly, you can do that. I'll do another 118 here. Also, much like flying fast jets, it's about energy conservation. And so you transfer the kinetic energy, which you have in forward flight, into potential energy by going up. And you get to the top, you turn around, and you transfer potential energy back into kinetic. I'm going to make a radio call and we'll head back to dispersal.
Okay, Rich, thank you for that, brilliant.
Historic 06, now back to 118.6 to taxi back to Delta.
Historic 06, taxi back to Delta.
Historic 06, taxi Delta.
Taxi Delta, Historic 06.
And for those that haven't been to the Army Flying Museum, just been revamped. It's an awesome experience in there.
It is, yeah, it's well worth a look actually. Yeah, they've done a lot of work in there. I mean, I can remember it as a young air trooper up here, and I was here every weekend, but it's totally changed now. It was good then, but...
Yeah, very good. And as we go back through the gate here, once again, Chris, your job is to wave at all those children at the museum here.
So don't forget, if you're here on a Thursday or a Friday, you get a free air show.
And here we are, back to the spot we came from. Spot number 3.
Perfect.
Well, just a short flight, but hopefully lots of fun.
Yeah, thanks very much. Much appreciated. I'm sure the people watching will learn something from it.
Okay.
Thanks for your time. I'll see you in a minute.
Thank you.